Welcome back to Owls Only, the Adult Swim podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hope, and I love that chicken from Popeyes. Here with my co-host.
I'm Hunter, and I was born in the toilet in the crud zone.
So today we are talking King Star King. So the first online original, did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently they didn't want to air this on TV, which I kind of get because it is like disgusting and it is like incredibly sexual too, especially like the original run before they did the special.
Didn't
Like,
they
go ahead.
didn't they change their mind and air it on Toonami, or at least the pilot?
They definitely aired it on TV. Like, because when you go on the Wikipedia article, it shows that it shows like the website date and then also like the date it aired on the network. But like, I think this was the first time they like premiered a show on the website because this is also like this is summer 2014, so this is 9 years ago, and this is a couple months before Fish Center. So this does make it the first like online original because this is like a couple months before they really start the streams up. But yeah. So it's created by JJ Villard, who also did JJ Villard's Fairy Tales in 2020 and the Trap Universe pilot in 2018. What are your thoughts on those?
Um, I just rewatched Trap Universe the other day, and I rewatched the first couple episodes of Fairy Tales. I didn't watch all of them, but I like Trap Universe, and I thought Fairy Tales when it came out, I thought it was okay. I didn't love it, and I didn't hate it. Although some episodes are funnier than others, like the Pinocchio episode is really funny and it's my favorite.
Yeah.
But I think his work is pretty consistent, pretty consistently decent.
Yeah. I remember I really did not like Fairy Tales when it first came out, but the first one I watched is the fucking Back Boils one. So that's kind of like, that's probably why. Because was that one on April Fools, or was it the Rapunzel one or the Goldilocks one on
It
April
was
Fools?
the Goldilocks Massacre.
Okay, I don't know why I always associated the Back Boils one with it then. Um
That was in the ads a lot before the show came out, was that scene specifically.
Yeah, because like when I think of fairy tales, it's like the first thing that comes to mind. But I did rewatch it in preparation for the King Star King special that just came out, and it is actually pretty solid. I think it's funny. It's definitely a lot better than I gave it credit for. I think it's pretty solidly funny. It's good. But
JJ
go ahead.
JJ Villard also has two student films. One of them is called Chestnuts of Ice Lolly, and you can't find it online anywhere. And
Hmm.
one of them is called Son of Satan, which you can find online, and I watched it. And it's the way it's animated is almost has this like sketchbook look, and the premise of it is really dark. It's like about a bunch of kids that basically are bullying this other kid, and it escalates to the point that they try to hang him, but the main kid feels guilty, and he like goes and like lets him down and lets him live, and it's just basically like a little short story about that, and very interesting student film. JJ Villard's stuff always has this like dark, fucked up like feeling to it, but that film especially was like way dark.
Yeah, that's also I remember Trap Universe came out in 2018 and I knew nothing about JJ Villard. I'd never seen King Star King, so I watched the Trap Universe pilot and I fucking hated it because I thought it was too bleak for me. I thought it was just like this just like makes me upset. But then I watched it again and I think it's very funny. I really like I think Trap Lord is funny. I think his the little like main character's kid like bullying Trap Lord by like fucking with him is funny. Um, but yeah, he makes good shit, although he does make like incredibly fucked up shit that I feel like a lot of people don't. I feel like a lot of people don't like because it's so fucked up, but I do think it's like it's good. I like Kickstarter. I like all of JJ Villard shit.
Everything I've seen that he's made is good. Even that student film, even though it's really dark, I thought it was well written and the
Yeah.
drawings were really nice.
Did you also confuse this with Mongo Wrestling Alliance for the longest time?
No, I actually don't know a lot about Mongo Wrestling Alliance.
Me neither, but for some reason I always put the two in like the same category. I always used to think of them that I was like, oh yeah, these are like the same thing, even though they're probably very different. But Mongo is one of the very few shows that I haven't watched. It was like this is also one of the few shows I hadn't watched before like last week. But yeah, I used to always like confuse these two. So we can just get like right into the pilot. So they live before time, apparently. Like the setting is very interesting because apparently it's like they said it's a couple billion years before time, right?
Yeah.
And the basic plot of the pilot is that King Star King wants to fuck Snow White, but Snow White is God Star God's daughter, right?
Yes.
So God Star God like exiles him from the heavenly realm to the Crud Zone, which is just like like this disgusting like city type thing where like most of the show takes place. Um, but yeah, I because in this Godstar God is like very clearly like his enemy, you know?
Yeah, he does not like King Star King.
Yeah, like Godstar God fucking hates him and exiles him to the Crud Zone. That's like the setup for the show. But and then the villain of this one is like this rabbit thing who has the same voice as Roxo because this one of the co-creators of this is Tommy Blacha from Metalocalypse, and he voices like almost all the characters in the show. So he voices that little rabbit thing. Does the rabbit sound like Roxo or does it sound like Facebones? I know it's one of the two. Do you
I think he
remember?
sounds like face bones to me.
Okay, yeah, I think he's Facebones, and I think Hank Waffles sounds a bit more like Roxo. Um, big thing that the big huge misfire that the special did was they recast Hank Waffles with Justin Roiland. Amazing timing on that. Um, but yeah, so I think if they do more, they're definitely like, just gonna have Tommy Blacha do Hank Waffles again because like, you know, they have officially cut their ties with Justin Roiland because which good because like fuck him, but it was very, very bad timing for him to just for them to release the special like immediately after they cut ties with him, you know.
When I was watching the special, seeing the credits was kind of like a brick getting thrown at my face. Because like executive producer Justin Roiland, top build writer Justin Roiland, Hank Waffles, and cop Justin Roiland. His name shows up like 3 or 4 times in the credits, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah, it was fucked. I honestly don't think he had that much to do with writing it because I feel like because I don't think he fucking writes anything. Because what we're hearing is like even though most of like the Solar Opposite staff like have never met him, so I feel like he pitched like 2 or 3 jokes, but they gave him like top billing because like before 2 months ago he was like the biggest name in animation. So I feel like that's probably why they gave him like such high billing on like the writers like section of the credits. Or I hope so, by the way, because I really like that special. But so yeah. So King Star King is like essentially immortal, which I kind of noticed throughout like the show because he does like die constantly, or he just kind of like explodes his like insides out of his fucking body and it's always just kind of like reforms.
When I
Um
saw the ad for the special for the first time before I had watched any of the show, because the ad for the special is what convinced me to like watch the show and get ready. When he like
Same.
exploded in the ad, I was like, oh, does he just like die in the special? I was like, how does he come back from that?
Yeah, he just does it all the time. It's funny. Um, but yeah, so they Kingstar King he's exiled from the heavenly realm to the Crud Zone, and he's got like his little sidekicks. He's got Huza the wizard, who's like a duck thing, and Gerbil's the flying. They call him a flying robot bear in the pilot, and he does not talk in this. He does not talk through. I think he says like 1 or 2 words throughout like the first season, but in the special, he's like a fully like talking character. Uh, does Puza also really doesn't do that much in this show? Did you notice that?
The biggest thing he does is he basically creates Hank Waffles.
Yeah, the biggest thing he does, especially in the pilot, is because like King Star King works for Hank Waffles, who's like this guy who runs like a waffle restaurant, and then Hank Waffles gets like fucking brutally murdered, and as he's dying, King Star King has Pooza transfer his consciousness into like the mascot, which is just like this like man with like a stack of waffles as a head. So Hank Waffles is now just like this fucking abomination who like wants to die, which is funny. Um, but yeah, does this remind you of Korgoth?
Yes, it does.
This is very Korgoth to me, which is why I think it's funny that people like at least back in the day, I think people have softened on it. A lot of people hated it back in the day, but like this is essentially like Korgoth with like taken two steps further. Um,
I remember I used to think the show was bad because I had saw like a video review of it on YouTube. I'm not gonna say who made it, but
yeah,
I saw a video review and the guy was just basically like really relentlessly harsh on the show, saying it was terrible, it was disgusting, it was crude, and my tastes hadn't fully developed at that point. So I just like took the video at face value and I'm like, wow, that show sure does look terrible. But
yeah.
watching it for myself, I loved it.
Yeah, it's great. And also I think that a lot of people are like, well, it's gross, but they really don't think about like how much fucking artistry is like in this show and how much like, how like just think about how much it takes to draw like one of these fucking backgrounds. It's crazy. Like the show is insane how good it looks, I think. I think it's like because it's disgusting and it's like crude, but like the animation is genuinely like expressive and beautiful. It's almost like it's like Super Jail in a
I
way.
think the animation is so fast paced that it doesn't really give you time to feel grossed out about anything happening because before you can like process how you feel, something else is already happening that's completely different.
Yeah. Like I think it was somewhere I saw someone described it as Super Jail on bath salts, which I do kind of agree with. It is kind of like Super Jail. It's like Super Jail and Korgoth taken like two steps further into just like pure insanity. Um like for example, the first episode's conflict is that rabbit, what's his name, spring bunny, which I always confuse as spring trap because they are like like similar names and they're both like rabbits. um spring bunny has a virgin powered evil robot that is powered by Snow White's virginity, and so King Star King and his crew break in there. And so to stop the robot, King Star King just fucks her. Like King Star King just fucks her to destroy the virgin fuel source. And then he like flushes Spring Bunny down the toilet, which is funny. But yeah, what'd you think of the pilot?
I liked the pilot. When I was initially watching through the whole show, I thought I watched it in two different sittings, so it may just be like I was in a different mood. But I thought the last four episodes of the show were better than the first three, including
Yeah,
the pilot. Like
yeah,
everything from the Fantasy Lounge episode on, I really loved. And then like those first three, I just liked.
yeah. Um, so yeah, King Star King is just stuck in King Star King is stuck in the crud zone, and like his love interest is Snow White, but she kind of disappears after the first two episodes. Did you think she was gonna be his wife in the special?
I was wondering what they were gonna do with that.
I thought because like his wife in the special is like a blonde woman, so I'm like, oh, is it gonna be Snow White? Because like she was so set up to be like this important character in the first like two episodes, and then she's like completely gone from the rest of the show.
If you
Um,
remember, she dies and they bury her at the end of the first proper episode.
oh yeah. Um, so the first proper episode, I fucking love the narrator guy in this show. Like the guy who opens and closes every episode by narrating, because he's like a cosmic Marvel character, you know?
I was a little sad he wasn't in the special.
Yeah, he should have been in the special. He's a great character. He's like there's this guy in Marvel Comics who's just been adapted to like one of the TV shows, and the one of he got adapted to the animated TV show, which is awesome, but it looks bad. It's it's called Uatu the Watcher, and like his thing is he just like introduces like fucked up like stories in the Marvel universe will be like, hey, he's like the host of like the Twilight Zone, but for like Marvel Comics, where he'll just like pop up and just like be like, hey, this happened one time in the multiverse. Wasn't that fucked up? Anyway, I'm Uatu the Watcher. And like this is how it ends, you know? Um, but they adapted him for the What If TV show, which I think that show fucking rules and is awesome, but the art style looks like Spider-Verse but worse. And that's all I'll say on that. But I fucking love the narrator guy. I think he's great. Um, this is the one where they have to fight Alfonso Malestro, who's like a weird, like scorpion looking guy. And he straight up takes off Snow White's fucking head, which is crazy. Like, he takes off her fucking head, and he like does he no he sends the head back and then he takes the body, right?
Yeah, he just wanted the body.
Okay, he takes the head. Does he like send the head back to them at Hank Waffles?
I think he just launches it through space and it happens to land at Hank Waffles.
Okay. One of my notes for this episode just says, your generous udders are bewitching. So I don't remember what joke that was, but it's funny. Um, I love how much Hank wants absolutely nothing to do with any of this. Like he wants them all to die. Like he just like what does he say in this episode that you loved? Like your favorite line?
He says something like, "You know what? I'm glad Snow White died. I hope you all die too," which is my favorite or maybe second favorite line from the whole thing.
Like, yeah, like Hank doesn't want anything to do with this bullshit. He hates all of them. He wants all of them to die. And like King Star King just like loves him and brings him along in every adventure, which is kind of really funny and endearing. I also love how in every I feel like he does King Star King do crack before every fight?
He does some form of drug. I can't always tell what it is, but he usually like smokes or snorts or drinks something like
Yeah.
before every fight he gets into.
Yeah, he does it like every time. Um this episode has that little subplot of Kuza and Gerbils making out. Did that also remind you of the cybernetic ghost and Oglethorpe from the Aqua Teen movie?
I didn't think of that, but now that you say that, I totally see it.
Because they're both just kind of like funny side characters and they start making out. I'm like, oh yeah, this is just like Oglethorpe and Oglethorpe and the cybernetic ghost. But yeah, this show is like the setting is very cosmic Marvel, and like the guy, like the narrator guy, is very cosmic Marvel, and it's also just kind of mixed with like a court with like Korgoth, and then like that Beavis and Butthead like desert trip scene in the movie. That's what it kind of reminds me of. Does it remind you of that?
Yeah,
But yeah, so first episode, pretty good. I think, and they do just kind of kill off Snow White, and then that's like the end of her, even though she's like so telegraphed to be this major character. So the next episode is Chunkles and Smear, which is like that's the one with these two little goblins that they almost kind of remind me like the Moppets from Venture Brothers. Um, like these little goblins just running around, and then like this giant, disgusting woman is like their mother, and is she wants to fuck King Star King, right?
she's basically sad that she's like so ugly that she doesn't get any action. So King Star King decides that it's like his duty to like fix that.
Yeah. Her name is her name is Baroness Sludgeclot, right?
I believe so.
And also King Star King has a giantess fetish, which is funny. And also, how many conflicts in this show are solved by King Star King just like having sex with them? Like it's at least two. Um, this one has the great because like King Star King has to go take out Baroness Sludgeclot on like a date and like have sex with her, and then like Puza, Gerbils, and Hank Waffles have to watch like these fucked up little children, and like Hank Waffles tells them to go like play hide and seek, and then they hid in the deep fryer.
That is the one of the funniest bits in the show, I think, is the ending of the episode where they're in the deep fryer and then their mom just eats them.
Yeah, Baroness Sludgeclot just kind of comes out and eats them. The Watcher guy also says Bambinos, which I noticed because like is he's like he just randomly becomes Italian, maybe he's always Italian. Um, but yeah, he's just like he just says Bambinos, which I laughed at. This is also Titmouse show. This is one of the early Titmouse shows, I think. Which is interesting because there's a point in like the early 2010s when like almost everything on Adult Swim is getting animated by Titmouse. Like this, Venture Brothers, Metalocalypse, like it really felt like everything on Adult Swim was being animated by Titmouse.
Super Jail changes to Titmouse for its last 3 seasons.
Oh yeah, yeah. The superheroes Titmouse. Royal Crackers gonna be Titmouse. They just dropped the trailer for. What you think about Royal Crackers? Did you see the trailer?
Uh, I did see the trailer. I don't really have many thoughts on the show. I think a lot of people think it looks really bad and it's kind of like a subject of jokes for some people. But I just think
Absolutely.
it looks all right. I'll watch it.
A lot of people have just decided it's bad, I think, which is also kind of annoys me about adult animation because people do that with like every new adult animated show. Like, so I'm going to watch it and form my own opinions. Something I think you might find interesting though is the guy did an interview and he said that he's trying to make Royal Crackers look like a Beavis and Butthead style type thing from the 90s. He's trying to do the same thing that like they're doing with the Beavis and Butthead reboot, where they want to capture that sort of like shaky art style from like the 90s.
I can respect that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that's cool. But so yeah, this is the next episode is Fat Frank's Fantasy Lounge, where Kingstar King is kind of straight up just a fry cook, which I think is funny because he's definitely like he's like this He-Man he's like this He-Man with Korgoth type figure where he's just like this badass guy with like powers who goes around and just like has sex with like people with like fucking hot ladies and stuff, but he's also just like a fry cook, which I think is funny. Um and I also like how every background character in the Hank Waffles restaurant is just like either disgusting freaks or just like women with like horrifically large like tits, which is funny. And so what this you said this one was like is this one's one of your favorites, right? The Fat Frank's Fantasy Lounge.
This one was the point where I really started getting into the show and I really started loving it. And then the one that was my absolute favorite was the one after this, the Saga of Mike Balls. But
Yeah.
this one was really good.
This is the one where because there's like it's like a cosmic STD that does this, right? Like the Fantasy Lounge.
Yeah, the big brain.
The Fantasy Lounge is essentially the Joy Can from season one of Venture Brothers. It's like essentially the same thing, but like instead of being like it's a science thing, it's like I said, a cosmic STD. I also like how when they went to the lounge, there's like portraits of presidents all over it. Like Teddy Roosevelt is one of the portraits for some reason. Um, so it creates like anything you want essentially, which is just the Joy Can from Venture Brothers. So Hank Waffles makes like it's like he calls it like a chicken cola, right? Like the thing he makes.
Oh, yeah. It was like his favorite drink as a kid, and they like don't make it anymore.
Yeah, so Hank Waffles makes like a chicken cola, and like the big thing I remember from this episode is just like every time they cut back to Hank Waffles and his fantasy, he's just like breastfeeding. Like he's just like a nostalgia baby, and I think this also works a lot as like a commentary on like what a lot of pop culture is, where it is just like feed me things that I remember from like being a kid, you know?
Yeah, because especially we're getting like so many reboots right now, and I'm excited for a decent amount of them, and I like
Yeah.
a lot of them. Like the Beavis and Butthead reboot is really good, but it's also really damaging to where we can't get original things. Like Craig McCracken was talking about how he's been pitching all these shows and they wouldn't take any of them, so he had to like do the Powerpuff Girls reboot that he's working on, which I'm sure he's happy to do, but it wasn't like the first thing he wanted to do.
Yeah, it is essentially like it is very hard for things that are new to get made anymore. And it really does it does feel like every week you get on Twitter and they announce that like they're making more of something, you know? Which is cool when it's good, but sometimes it does get like kind of annoying. But But yeah, I really like Hank Waffles' whole thing because he's just a nostalgia baby. Like Hank Waffles is gonna complain about like women in his Ghostbusters and stuff in like 2 seconds. I think that entire plot line is really funny. Um, did you see that part in this where Gerbils is just like licking this cat's ass that looks like Normal from Garfield?
Yeah, I did notice that in the um JJ Villard did a Reddit AMA when this show was relatively new, and all of his answers in it are like he's typing in all caps, they're completely unhinged, and someone asks about that, and his response is something along the lines of like Garfield is sexy.
Oh, that's really funny. But yeah, also the thing the show does is the background score is just like classical music that's like public domain. Because I noticed that because they use one of the tracks in this episode that's like something they use on Frisky Dingo all the time. And I'm like, this is like Frisky Dingo classical music, which is funny. But so next episode is the Saga of Mike Balls. This one's your favorite, right?
Yeah, this one is my favorite. Before we did this today, I rewatched this episode. I rewatched a little bit of the pilot and I rewatched the special.
Yeah. Does Mike Balls sound like Toki to you?
Yes, I was gonna bring that up earlier when you said the spring rabbit sounded like face bones. I was gonna bring that up, but I decided to wait until now.
Yeah, Mike Balls sounds very Toki to me. Like he sounds a lot like Toki Wartooth. The bully in this episode, what's the bully's name? I forgot.
It's Tim Toomer or Tom Toomer.
It's Tim Toomer. It's Tim Toomer. He does his stupid little fucking song and dance, which is funny. Yeah, but like this episode is Mike Balls, who's like this fucking annoying little like kid, and he's getting bullied by Tim Toomer, who's just this asshole. And King Star King wants to help Tim Toomer by like he wants to help Mike Balls like get like badass enough to just straight up murder Tim Toomer, which is funny. But like Mike Balls is just like he's just Steven Universe. Like Mike Balls is just Steven Universe where he doesn't think anybody should fight, and this is like not the universe for that, which is funny. But I in my notes I have King Star King is kind of a nice person. Immediately next note is okay, he did just roll Mike Balls into a joint and smoke him.
Something I started to notice with this episode is that this show has a lot of subliminals in it where there'll be like text on the screen, usually relating to like violence or sex or drugs, and there'll be a lot of things that are in like the shape of a dick. Like
Yes.
when Kingstar King is about to give Mike Balls the hot dog that has the steroids in it, it like zooms up and his shadow is the shape of a dick, and then it says "Rise Up."
Yeah, like everything in the show is just dick shaped, like all the time. But yeah, so this episode is just like King Star King trying to train Mike Balls into like being a badass so he can kill Tim Toomer. And it's a very good one. I think this one's funny. And this is the one also where I noticed that Hank Waffles is like the Carl of this show. Because he just doesn't want anything to do with any of this shit.
There's a point where he's joining in on antagonizing Mike Balls, where he lights all the fireworks under him.
Yeah, it's very Carl. But so we also have Springtime in the Gigantiverse. And what percentage of the animation in the original series is just like boobs? Like, have you noticed that? Where it's just
Yeah,
like 90% of it is just boobs. But this is the one where Hank Waffles falls in love with
Burger
Burger
Bitch.
Bitch. Love Burger Bitch. Um, and she Burger Bitch's thing is that she's like in love with cowards, right?
Yeah,
I also one thing I do love about this show is that King Star King, he's like an asshole, but he does genuinely love his friends. Like he loves Hank Waffles and wants him to be happy, which I do think is it's nice. I like that. Um yeah, this more develops that Hank Waffles has like a giant fucking mommy fetish, which is funny. And then Hank Waffles is just like a massive coward and but he's like she ends up not like because like she brings back her ex. Like her ex comes back, who's also a burger. And is it King Star King that beats the shit out of her ex, or is it somebody else?
it's King Star King, and then what ends up happening is that she sees that her ex is also a coward, and that makes her like him again because she thinks, well, Hank is a coward. He's also mean, and that like takes away from it.
Yeah, he's like an asshole, which is like because like Kingstar King like beats the shit out of her ex, and like Hank Waffles is like laughing and joining in, so he's like an asshole. And because of that, she's like, oh well, I don't fucking she's like, oh, I don't like you anymore because of that. Hank Waffles also does like disgustingly racist yellow face in this episode, which, classic Adult Swim. Uh, Burger Bitch's voice reminds me a lot of Katya from Archer, which I just realized you're not gonna know what that means. But they introduce this character in Archer named Katya, who, and I think Burger Bitch sounds a lot like her. But so the final episode before the special is called Quaqua City. And so this took me a second to understand what the hell was happening. So it's like this guy goes around and he's like robbing like places, and he like just like sucks people into like this utopia inside his head, right?
Yeah, like one of his eyes comes off, and it makes like a tornado.
Yeah. And so they all get sucked into Quaqua City inside this guy's head, which is effectively just kind of like a utopia. It's like a perfect world, but and like they all want to stay there except for King Star King because he knows he's all fucked up, and he ends up. What happens is they're gonna allow them to stay there as long as King Star King like bows down to Quaqua. I think is that what the conflict was.
Yeah, where they're kind of in the court, and he has to like pledge allegiance to Quaqua. He has to say something like Quaqua is number one, or it's something
Yes,
really simple like that, and then he just
that's it.
refuses to say it.
Yeah, because he's just like an asshole. He won't say anything that like implies that like someone's like better than him because he's like an asshole. He's like won't do it. So he gets them all kicked out of this like utopia inside the Gigantiverse. And that was the show's ending for 9 fucking years. So this was so this 9 years go by. We get like the Trap Universe pilot in 2018, and we get JJ Villard's Fairy Tales in 2020, and then you had a theory about this relating to fairy tales, didn't you? Like the special?
A lot of Adult Swim shows seem to get some kind of two-season deal where stuff like Laser Wolf, Hot Streets, and the Jellies weren't very popular at all when they came out, but all of them got second seasons. So I was assuming that when they like sign for a new show, like even Bird Girl and Teenage Euthanasia, which are arguably like more well received, those
Yeah.
both got second seasons too. So I was assuming basically when they sign on for a new show, they like give it a two-season deal. And I was surprised that Fairy Tales didn't get a second season. So I was wondering if they were like, all right, we don't want to do a second season, but we'll let you do something. And then he was like, okay, let's do King Star King.
Yeah, because it is a very, very deep cut for them to bring back because like when they were making we think about because Adult Swim loves to do specials, and like they do like the moral oral special, and they do like the Harvey Birdman 12-ounce mouse special, which is kind of similar to what's going on right now with like the King Star King and Ballmaster specials, but like Birdman is beloved. Everybody loves Birdman, and 12-ounce mouse had a really strong fan base. But it was very interesting that their decision to bring back King Star King because it is a very deep cut, you know?
I
Like,
have not heard many people besides of like video essay thing I saw on YouTube. I haven't really heard people talk about this show positively or negatively. Like I haven't heard people say that they had just known about it or watched it before the special was announced.
yeah, like this was a very deep cut, I think, which is interesting. But so yeah, after 9 fucking years, we're back. We got a new art style. We got the fairy tales art style now. Um, so I love the entire setup of this episode because I was watching it and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? But in a very almost venture way. They don't lay it out for you, but like in like the second half you get it. You're like, oh, okay. because it starts off and King Star King is now just like a normal guy with like a wife and kids living in the normal zone, which is what it's called. And he works for Amazon, which I something this they do like a very similar thing to Aqua Teen Forever, Plantasm, where they bring back these characters after like fucking 8 or 9 years, and the first story is they're fighting Jeff Bezos and Amazon, which I think fucking rocks. A lot of people have complaints with that. Like people are like, "Who doesn't fit with King Star King?" But like, I think more Adult Swim shows should come back and just immediately start with them fighting Jeff Bezos. Like that fucking rules. I think it's awesome. Um,
I like that they went with that premise too. It's really funny.
it's awesome. I love it. But so King Star King is like he's like fat and he's like balding and he's middle aged and he works for Amazon now. And so he goes to and so he like he gets called in to Jeff Bezos' house and so he leaves his family and he like drives away from them and he's like sobbing in the car and I was watching this like what the fuck is going on? Like cuz I'm like I don't understand what's going on here. But then he goes to he goes to Jeff Bezos' castle and forces him to cut out his own kidney with like a chicken bone, and then he takes the kidney and he escapes and he goes back to the crud zone where you find out that he's been doing this for years as part of a ploy to steal Jeff Bezos' kidney to make an Amazon kidney waffle so they can get a Michelin star for the Hank Waffles restaurant, which is fucking awesome. I love that reveal.
Before I get too into talking about the plot, I want to point out there are a few interviews they did with JJ, and it seems like the new art style in this wasn't for budget reasons. It wasn't to make it cheaper. It was like his own choice to reflect him calming down and like settling down over the years. Where like what's happening with King Star King in the beginning with like the wife and kids and the dog and all that is also what happened to like JJ in real life.
Yeah. I love the new art style. I think there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, people were bitching about it because people will bitch about anything, but I really do like the new art style. I think it's cool.
It still has like its crazy moments too, where there's like a lot visually interesting things going on. Like I don't think like it's not drawn the same, but it has like the same vibe.
Yeah. They do a very Aqua Teen thing in this show where the characters will just like slide around sometimes. Like I noticed that King Star King just kind of like slides up the stairs whenever he has to walk upstairs, which is funny. Um, But yeah, a big thing like in this episode, a running joke is that Jeff Bezos just loves like talking about Popeyes, which I think is very funny because when you watch Adult Swim on cable, every commercial break is a Popeyes commercial without fail. Like every single one.
Something else, yeah, I do notice a lot of the Popeyes ads. Something that they used to do a lot of, which I'm not sure if they do very much anymore, is those the truth anti-vaping ads. And when they were
Yeah.
advertising the special, there's a cigarette in it, and the cigarette is censored in the ad, but in the special, it's uncensored.
I also noticed in the ad that like whenever the word Amazon is written, it is censored. So I think advertising just has different rules. But I do love how they're like, yeah, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, like Alexa, Amazon Prime, fucking like they use the
Being
logo.
security.
Yeah, they use the logo, which is fucking awesome. I love it. I love that they're just straight up like, no, this is Amazon and he's an asshole and Kingstar King is going to fucking murder him. But they make Bezos like Southern for some reason, which is kind of funny. Um I like the weird logic of like there's like it's like a cockroach and also like that turns into like a goo that he snorts to like transfer between like the normal zone and the crud zone. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And I really like that. I think the internal logic there is cool. Um, so the big thing in this episode is unfortunately Hank Waffles has been recast to be Justin Roiland, which sucks. And I did not hear it at all the first time, but I had my volume very low.
The first time I watched it, I thought he sounded exactly the same as he used to, but rewatching it, knowing he was Justin Roiland, I could kind of hear it, but it sounds it sounds almost unique because everyone gives Justin Roiland. The thing is, he only does two voices. He does like the Morty Lemon Grab voice, and he does the Rick voice. And his
Yeah.
Hank Waffles voice almost doesn't sound like that Morty voice.
Yeah, he finally unlocked the third voice, and it's like after, and also this is probably his last appearance on Adult Swim, if you think about it. Like this is the last time we'll probably hear his voice in a new thing on Adult Swim, which is fucking crazy. Like it's not the Rick and Morty finale, it's the fucking King Star King special, which is crazy. That's like the last time we'll hear him on Adult Swim. Good though, because fuck him. But yeah, and this one, gerbils can now talk, which is funny because like they just kind of changed the rules for him. And him and Pooza do more than they usually do in this special because they have their own subplot. Because like before, they was kind of like along for the ride, but they never really did anything. But here, like, King Star King and Hank Waffles go back to the normal zone to go fight Jeff Bezos and save King Star King's family. And then like Pooza and Gerbils have to run the Waffle Zone, which they immediately like don't care about at all, and they're just like watching Blue Bloods. Um, I fucking love the line reading because like every character in this show is very exaggerated, very high pitched. Everyone's always screeching all the time, and then Pooza comes out and he's like, "What are you doing? We have to make waffle." Oh, you watching Blue Bloods? Like the way his voice just like drops and he says it very normally is so funny to me. Like,
I
I
also
go ahead.
I also like the bit where the angry mob breaks down the door to the kitchen and then they notice the TV and one of the members of the angry mob is like, "Is that Blue Bloods?" And then another one's just like, "Fuck Blue Bloods," and they break the TV.
Yeah, I love the angry mob. They're so funny. Like, just like, I've been waiting over an hour. That's almost 60 minutes, you bitch. Like the entire like angry crowd is so funny. They also burn down Hank Waffles, which like doesn't stick because we see it again at the end of the episode, but it's funny how often it gets just like destroyed. But so yeah, there's a part after they get back to the normal zone where they have to fight God Star God, and this is where we were talking about earlier, where we can't tell if like what's going on here because he makes like multiple references to God Star God being like his best friend, but like God Star God fucking hates him and is more of like his boss than anything in the pilot, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the one that banishes him and wipes his memory, so he's the reason that he's a fry cook.
Yeah, like it's the way they did. Like I always thought like I missed something, but no, they just kind of like changed it. So Godstar God has been rebooted to now he's like kind of his friend, but not really because he does get hired by Amazon to like kill him. But also something I noticed is how much time do you think passed in the normal zone while Kingstar King was back in the crud zone? Because he was only in the crud zone for like probably like 20 minutes before he went back. But how much time do you think passed?
Um, Maybe a couple months or a year because there's the line that he has when he sees his family again, like, "Look how you've grown." And even though they didn't draw them to look any different, it's like implied because of the line.
Yeah. And I love Hank Waffles clowning on Jeff Bezos by calling him bozos. And he brings King Star King in like a box full of Popeye's chicken that he pops out of and beats the shit out of him. Did you laugh at him going, "Alexa, beta uprising now?" Because that made me fucking lose my mind.
Yeah.
That
Something
Go ahead.
something else I noticed is Hank Waffles does the most in this special out of anything in the series, where he shoots the like cherries or whatever that defeat Godstar God, and then he also brings the box to Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, like he tries. He tries on this one. But yeah, him just hearing the words beta uprising now on television is fucking insane and I loved it. It was so funny. But so yeah, this ends with they kill Jeff Bezos, and then Kingstar King moves his family to the Crud Zone, and they're just kind of like horrified. But then also, because Gerbils made Pooza into a waffle and sent him over to Donnie Wahlberg. So Donnie Wahlberg fucked him and created like babies, and so he wasn't gonna pay child support. So Kingstar King goes to fucking murder him for not paying child support, and the family just kind of like tags along, and that's just like the ending. But They changed this though, as we learned, because this was a Christmas special that aired in February because the original ending was something different, but they changed it to keep it more open-ended because they want to make Adult Swim kind of implied they want to make more, which is crazy. Like, but yeah, the entire family now lives in the crud zone. Who's immediately eats his babies, and then that's the end of the special. And so that's like I guess the setup is now King Star King has a family, but also still does like his normal King Star King stuff, which is awesome. I'm very excited for this.
Something I'm wondering is if Jeff Bezos is going to come back, because if you look in the background when he's like reuniting with his family and hugging all of them and like Hank Waffles is at their feet, you can see his head like crawls out of the room.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that because I've seen the special 3 times, and the third time was a couple hours ago. That's when I noticed that. It was like, oh wait, his head's like getting away. So I would fucking love Jeff Bezos, the recurring antagonist, in this show. But yeah, Do you have anything that we forgot to mention about King Star King you want to talk about?
Not that I can think of. We were covered a lot.
Yeah, we talked the shit out of this show. So I'm gonna do some plugs. You can follow us on Twitter on at Owls Only Pod. And you can also follow Swimpedia on Twitter. They did a great interview with Christy Caracas about like ball masters that everybody should read. So follow at Swimpedia on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at adult underscore swim underscore merch underscore archive. Do you want to plug anything or no?
My Twitter is Micromasta, but the actual at is Masta Micro because somebody like I don't know how this happened because my username is like a reference to a Parappa the Rappa song, and someone else I guess thought of the same thing, but they don't use their account. It's just like been locked for years. But if
Classic.
you want to follow me, that's mine. I mostly just like retweet things that I find funny or cool. I don't do a lot of like posting myself.
All right. Yeah. So I don't know when this is going to come out, but I think the next one I'm going to be recording is either you and I are going to do 12-ounce mouse or I'm going to be doing smiling friends with one of my other friends. But all right. So see you next time.
See ya.